What is going on, Supers? Welcome back to another episode of Sidelined. We're here with Dr. Ethan Ellul, the Osteopath, talking about Dan McStay's knee injury that we now know is an MCL. Eth, thank you so much for joining us in
Thanks for having me
unfortunate
on.
circumstances again.
Unfortunately, yes.
So, what can you tell us about Dan's knee? It was, to the naked eye, to my naked eye, looked very innocuous, but
Yep.
give us the go around.
Yeah, so an MCL injury it's actually quite common.
Yep.
It's the most common ligamentous injury in the knee.
Okay.
As we know, luckily there was no, ACL involvement.
Yep.
And often they do go hand in hand.
Mm-hmm.
But the MCL itself is actually very different to the ACL. So the ACL is sort of inside your actual knee joint, whereas the MCL is more superficial. It's more towards the surface. Basically, it's a ligament on the inside of the knee. That's why it's called your medial collateral ligament. Medial is the inside. And yeah, usually you're going to sprain it from a force to the outside of the knee, which is basically what happened in that Dan incident.
Yep.
So as he's landing, I'm not sure which Bombers player it was, but you see there's a slight sort of knock to the outside of his knee, which actually puts pressure on the inside of the knee, and that's what's caused that tear through there.
Right. So, yeah, like I said, it was innocuous, but you were showing me off camera that if you plant your knee and someone just hits you, it like even just when you sort of did that to me, I was like, oh yeah, that kind of hurts.
100%. Yeah, like it doesn't take much. The thing is, when you're in the air, your body doesn't have a very good sense of exactly where your joints are positioned. And so as you're coming down, if you get knocked, particularly in a joint like the knee, which only really likes to open and close. It doesn't like to sort of move in and out. And then it throws off your whole sort of landing sequence. And yeah, it takes just a bit of pressure from the outside to put that strain through the inside of the knee. I think as he landed as well, I have to have a closer look, but as he landed, that force again from the landing, and if there was any pressure again on the outside of the knee, that would have contributed.
And I think he got we'll chuck the footage up anyway, but he got fallen on as well. It was just a whole calamity of errors. So Dan McStay did do his MCL, if you guys remember. Unfortunately, in the prelim, kicks those couple of goals. We don't get into the grand final without him. So he did his MCL in his right knee. Same sort of thing, I'm pretty sure, and I'll chuck the footage up, where someone goes into him and it just sort of like bobbles, I guess.
100%. Yeah. And that's the most common cause is going to be a blow from the outside of the knee. To be honest, I guess the positive here is that it was a sort of trauma like that, and it wasn't just like a change of direction injury, because we know he's also done his ACL on that same side. And so like a change of direction injury is more, I suppose, concerning, because then that shows there's either a lack of stability there, or there's a lack of coordination or something. Whereas if you're landing and someone's, pushed the outside of your knee, most players are probably not going to handle that very well.
So it's just unlucky.
Pretty much.
And
pretty much.
We were sort of talking, and you wanted to make the point that his MCL in his left knee has nothing to do with the ACL injury that he sustained.
No. I don't think so. And for that reason, it wasn't, like he's just gone to like crumb the ball or sidestep someone and the knee's gone on him. There was like players everywhere. He's midair, he's copping a contact. There was a lot going on. And I don't think many players would come off that sort of, incident with no issue.
So what are we sort of looking like for recovery time? I think they're saying about 6 to 8 weeks. What does that look like with running? Is it a knee brace? Is it crutches? What's that? What's the whole sort of process there?
So they came out and said, I don't know if it was the club directly, but they've classified it a grade 3. Some sources said moderate, but which are two different things, obviously. Like a grade 3 would be severe.
Yeah.
I think that 6 to 8 week timeline is like, I'd be surprised if it took longer than 8 weeks to see him back. And I do suspect they'll brace it initially for maybe a week or two, because the MCL does have a significant role in stabilizing the knee. So if that ligament is ruptured, which is what a grade 3 sprain is, then there's a lot of movement going on in that joint. And so when you're walking and just moving around, you probably feel like that knee's a little bit wobbly or could give way and whatnot. So to prevent another injury, I suspect they'll brace it. And MCL almost never requires surgery or anything like that. Because it's more towards the outside, it has a pretty good blood supply, unlike the ACL, which can heal as well, but almost never does. So yeah, I think, you know, it'll be braced for a couple of weeks, and it shouldn't be too long before we see him sort of back out training. I'd say between sort of around that 4 weeks sort of mark. And look, given his previous injury, I guess the good thing that does come out of previous injury is you build up your strength and you build up a good base whilst you've got time away from footy. So he should already have a pretty decent sort of strength base there as well, which is good.
In that knee from that initial ACL.
100%.
Right. So what does that look like? Obviously, the club is going to be super diligent because it is that knee with with that ACL injury that he's sort of recovering from. And if you're saying that the MCL is that you know, you really sort of need that to look after it and to look after that ACL. What does that sort of mean going forward? Does that mean that if the MCL fully recovers, it's going to be, you know, there's more strength in it, so it'll be less susceptible, or another knock and then it just happens?
Yeah, that's a good question. And look, given that it's grade 3, you can end up with residual, what we'd call laxity, or residual, for lack of a better term, like looseness in the knee. So when you strain or sprain, I should say, a ligament, or in this case it's a tear, the fibers are literally overstretching, and then, you know, they at a grade 3 they tear like that. So they will heal, but they may not heal, you know, exactly where they want to be. And so what you end up with is a little bit more movement in the knee. So that can predispose further injury, because unlike the ACL, they're not, you know, using a graft or putting an external, you know, ligament there. They're allowing it to heal. But yes, you can end up with a bit of ongoing sort of laxity and a bit of a higher risk of future injury there, for sure.
So in these, let's just say that they give him 8 weeks, so the maximum amount that's sort of recommended. What does that mean for, like, what would be the worst case scenario during his rehab?
Well, it'd be another MCL sprain. So if you don't, I suppose, look after it, you're at risk of spraining it again before it's healed, and so that might push you back, you know, another week or two. That would be worst case. Obviously, there's the ACL concern, because if there is a bit of instability, the other ligaments have to
take that pressure.
There's more reliance on it, for sure. But they're not going to push him to the point where that's
100%
at risk. It's more so just re-spraining the same ligament
that you're trying to
look after.
And we talked about this a couple of episodes ago. I think it might have been for Jordan De Goey, where if it was coming up to, it was for his bone bruising. If it was coming up to finals, you probably could say, okay, 8 weeks, he's good to go. We'll need to play him for finals. But because it happened early on in the season, we're like round 7 or round 8. He's got those 8 weeks, takes him to round 16. You got that midweek bye. They'll just give him ample time to sort of get that through.
100%. You're always going to err on the side of caution if you've got time up your sleeve. Whereas, you know, I mean, players have played a final without an ACL or with broken ribs, all sorts of things. But it's that balance between, you know, winning a game or the, you know, potentially jeopardizing the longevity of a player. And if it's a grand final, they're most likely going to take the winning grand final. You know, that's what they're there to do, to win. But you know, we're early on in the season, and so it's not worth to a club and to the players, it's not worth risking the sort of longevity there. So they'll definitely err on the side of caution.
Yeah, and I think the beauty about it happening so early in the season and this season. So we saw last year that we're recovering from that MCL in 2023, then doing his ACL during preseason training, then coming back later on in the season, and we weren't having that cover. So I think, and you probably can correct me if I'm wrong, when he did that ACL, he returned faster than normal and still played pretty well. But now we've got Membry that we've recruited.
Yeah.
We've got Mason Cox in the wings. We've got Charlie West. So
100%.
that's even more to what you're saying.
Yeah.
Prioritizing his Dan McStay's longevity because you've got these other players that look, take a rest if you need the extra 3 weeks. And we've seen it time and time again this year.
Exactly right. There isn't that pressure of having, you know, that big key forward out without anyone else there to sort of replace him. So yeah, again, that gives him a more favourable outcome, and they can take their time there as required.
Yeah, and because he's been here before with the right MCL, he knows what sort of goes into it as well.
Yeah, 100%. That's like any injury. Like I see it with patients all the time. Like if they've done whatever it is, sometimes a patient will come in and see me if they've had the same injury before and they've already, you know, started doing exactly what I would have told them to do. And they know, you know, yes, these players basically live at the club, but there's still a lot of time where you're at home and doing other things. And so from that, either, you know, knee injury, he'd know exactly what to do and what not to do, which is sometimes just as important. So yeah, he's got a lot. There's a lot of sort of positives there, and obviously the major thing everybody was concerned about was his ACL. And given that the ACL, like to have a grade 3 MCL sprain without ACL involvement is quite rare. So I suppose it shows the stability or the integrity of that graft.
Doctors did a good job.
Yeah, they did a good job by the looks of it. Which is also a positive as well.
And we should mention as well that we're recording this before Collingwood released their injury list update. We were going off. I can't remember who it was, Tom Morris, or I'll put the tweet up now. All right, nice and quick video because I was just as confused. I thought MCL meant his ACL was going to suffer. So Eth cleared that up. Just also a couple of quick updates. Schultz is running again from that hamstring strain. Tom Mitchell from that foot injury that we talked about a while ago is back out and running. We know Daicos is playing now. Eth, thank you so much, mate. I appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks for having me back. Speak to you soon.